please ask what you were asking.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a type of person who, have so much memories in the past. I try to, sometimes I try to live back in those memories,
Yes,
right? Nostalgia, that's a powerful feeling.
yes,
Whenever I think back in the moments that I enjoyed, it brings
yeah,
me, it brings me tears. And the times that I laugh and the times that I'm afraid or, feared in the past,
mm,
it, right now when I think about all the moments that brought me, um, let me make it short.
yeah,
How can a person, it's sometimes it's hurtful,
yeah,
you know, all the mixed emotions.
yes,
Uh, how can a person, can it's easy to know that life is moving forward. You
yeah,
can know that intellectually, but emotionally you still cling on to something in the past.
yeah,
It could be memories or people.
yeah.
It could be. So knowing how is one thing, and then feeling is another thing. How can we practice to let go of those things and
Yes.
continue to move forward?
Well, first we need to understand the problem. That is, the root problem is ego. The nature of ego is is abhimanam. Its ego identifies itself, attaches itself to a name and form. So now, um, I am aware of myself as I am Michael. You're aware of yourself as I am Subbu. So um, that as Subbu, you're a person and you have memories of your past life. So just like you identify with yourself with the person you are now, you also identify with yourself with the Subbu as he was when he was younger in the past. So this is all part of, and it's inevitable. So long as we experience ourselves as I am this person, all the memories that accompany this person, we identify with these memories. So, but though because we take this person to be ourselves, we are attached to all these things. But how do we detach ourselves from these things? We need to understand the root cause of this attachment. The root cause of the attachment is our rising as ego. That is the very nature of ego. It's always to identify itself as I am this body, I am this person. But that is not a true knowledge of ourselves. That is a false awareness of ourselves. Instead of being aware of ourselves as we actually are, we're aware of something other than what we actually are. This person is not what we actually are. This person is undergoing so many changes. At one time, it was a small child, and it grew up. It went to school. It underwent so many experiences. It went to college. It undergoes so many life experiences, and as we experience more things, our memory build up. Some memories get lost as we accumulate new memories. So all this seems to be ourself. But if we think about it, all this is changing. This person that we seem to be is constantly undergoing change, as is everything else around us. But there's one thing that is unchanging. That is, what is it that gives that continuity to all these things? Some people say, oh, memories give continuity. But even memories come and go. We don't remember anything in sleep. But but did you sleep? Yes, I slept. So we're aware of our having been in a state in which we weren't aware of anything, didn't remember anything. So this person that we seem to be is not what we actually are. What we actually are is that which is constant and unchanging. That is our fundamental awareness of our own existence. What we express when we say, I am, Nanira Kareem. We're talking about our own existence. Our existence is what is real. Everything else, our existence and our awareness, Sat and Chit, or Ulladu Arivu, as Bhagavan says, or Ulladu Unavu. These are one and the same thing. So what we actually are is only that awareness I am. But instead of being aware of ourselves as just I am, we're now aware of ourselves as I am Subbu or I am Michael. That adjunct mixed, that adjunct mixed awareness, that is ego. We're not identified with ego. Ego is what identifies itself as a person.
Okay.
That is, Subbu is not the ego. But there's an I that has risen and says, I am Subbu. That I that is aware of itself as I am Subbu, that is ego. And that I is distinct from Subbu, because Subbu is the name of a body. In dream, you're not aware of this body, you're aware of some other body. That body may also be called Subbu. You take it to be the same person. But when you wake up from a dream, you reckon, oh, that body wasn't me. Now I'm this body, not that body. But so long as you were dreaming, that body was what you seemed to be. So our identification is shifting from one form to another form. But the one thing that is constant is our own, that fundamental awareness, I am. That is what is real. Everything else is a passing shot, is a dream. It appears and it disappears.
Okay.
That's why nothing other than I am is constant.
Right now, I think we are talking about two topics. One is this real self, the I, and the other one is the ego, or the ego trying to identify itself.
We can say we're talking about two things, but actually, it's not that there are two I's.
Yeah.
It's like supposing.
So where that ego is coming from?
Okay.
If everything is the self.
Right. Okay. That's that's what we need to find out. That is the relationship. It's not really a relationship, but if we want to call it the relationship between ego and our real self, what we actually are, is like the relationship between the snake and the rope. That is, we see a snake, we mistake it to be a rope. We see a rope, we mistake it to be a snake. Okay. There aren't two things there. There's only one thing. That one thing now seems to be a snake, but what it actually is only a rope.
Okay, quick question. Yeah. In the analogy, we seem to, we being the real self, look at the ego as the form as itself, right?
No.
Okay.
That's a very important point. What we actually are, that is a fundamental awareness I am, that is what is called pure awareness. Pure awareness means awareness that is not aware of anything other than itself. So our real nature, what we actually are, is not aware of ego, is not aware of the body or the world or anything. It is just pure awareness. Awareness without any object, it's awareness without being aware of anything. That is that is our real nature. Ego borrows from our real nature, borrows from that pure awareness. It borrows its existence and its awareness from that real awareness. Let's call that real awareness Satchit. You're aware. You're familiar with the term Satchit, right? Let's call it Satchit. That is what we actually are. When we say I am, what we are referring to is Satchit. That the words I am refers to our existence. I exist.
Just for the viewers, can you explain what do you mean by Satchit?
Satchit, the Sanskrit word. Sat means being, Ulladu, or Irupu. And Chit means Arivu or Unavu. It's awareness, but it's not the awareness that is aware of other things. It's a pure awareness. So pure being and pure awareness, which are not two different things. It's one thing.
It's the same thing. Okay.
And it's also called Satchidananda because happiness is nothing other than that.
Okay. Right. So in order to simplify my previous question, where that ego comes from, or the disillusion or the illusionment comes from.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: why, if awareness is my true self, is the base, is
Yeah.
who I am, then why I don't feel like it? Why
Right.
I am attached. So where is this confusion comes
Right.
from? Hopefully,
Okay.
it's a simple
Well,
way to.
according to Bhagavan, there's no answer to this question, why.
Mhm.
The question we should be asking is not why, but what or who.
Okay.
That is,
Okay.
we need to investigate what we actually are. When we investigate what we actually are, like, if you ask, why did that snake appear?
Mm-hmm.
That is merely, you can say, oh, it was because of the darkness, it was because of the darkness, but the darkness doesn't cause snakes to appear. You can say, oh, it's because of the mind mistook it, or it was an optical illusion. We can give so many explanations, but none of those explanations get to the root of the problem. What is that snake? Supposing you're walking along a path at dusk in dim light with Bhagavan, and you suddenly see what you take to be a snake lying there on the path. So you stop and you say, oh, no, we can't proceed further. There's a snake there. Bhagavan knows very well that it's just a rope. So he tells you, no, don't be afraid. It's not a snake. It's just a rope. And then you are, but to ask, if you begin to inquire, then why did the snake appear? You're asking about something that isn't actually there. There is no snake there. So to say, why did this snake come here? Why did it occupy our path and obstruct our... What you need to do, you need to investigate what it is. Bhagavan says, you see it as a snake. But Bhagavan says it's not a snake, it's only a rope. So how can you get rid of that snake? Mm-hmm. You can take a stick and beat it, but the snake is going to stay there. Because the snake exists only in it's a misperception. The only way to get rid of that misperception, you have to look at the snake very carefully. If you look at the snake very carefully, you'll see, oh, it was just a rope. Once you see it's a rope, all questions about the snake then disappear because there's no snake there. So to ask, why does ego come into existence? We are assuming the existence of ego. Bhagavan says, that's the fundamental error. So long as you take the existence of ego for granted, you cannot free yourself from it. So long as you're convinced that it's a snake there, you're going to be so afraid you're not even going to go close to look at it. But the only way to get rid of that snake is to look at it closely. So likewise, the ego, the only way to get rid of it is to look at it very closely. In other words, to investigate ourselves, to turn our attention back to ourselves, to see, who am I? It's not a matter of asking a question. We need to investigate. We need to look deep within ourselves to see what we actually are. When we look within ourselves, we will, the more we attend to ourselves, the more ego will subside and dissolve back into its source. Because ego, nobody has ever seen ego. We seem to be ego so long as we are looking at other things. Mm-hmm. But if we look at ego, there's no such thing to be found.
What do you mean by the other things?
Other things means all this world, both the external world, the physical world, and also the mental world. We have a whole world inside that a world of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our memories, our perceptions, everything. In fact, the whole physical world, we think it's outside, but actually it's inside. It's all inside our own mind. Mm-hmm. But when Bhagavan says, look within, he doesn't mean look at the thoughts and feelings. Mm-hmm. Look at the one to whom all these things appear.
Okay.
That whether the seemingly external physical world or the seemingly internal world of thought, they're all things other than ourselves. They're all things that are appearing and disappearing in our awareness. So to whom do they appear? One often asked, Yaraku, to whom? Mm-hmm. And if we investigate to whom does all this appear, it appears only to me. In that way, our attention is turned away from other things back towards ourselves. All other things are objects. We are the subject. who is aware of all these things? I am. So I is not an object. I is the subject. So we're trying to turn our attention away from the objects back towards the subject. When we do so, ego, to the extent to which we attend to ourselves, to that extent, ego subsides. And to the extent ego subsides, to that extent, ego subsides and everything else drops off along with ego. So eventually, when we attend to ourselves keenly enough, we will dissolve back into the source from which we rose. The source from which we rose is only our real nature, what we actually are, that fundamental awareness I am.
Okay.
So in other words, there's only one I, but now that one I, we experience mixed with adjuncts. That which is aware of itself as I am these adjuncts. Adjuncts means this body and mind, the whole, all the five sheaths, as they say. So these are adjuncts which we've now conflated, we've now mixed and confusing as ourself. So I am this person. This person consists of what? Body, life, mind, intellect, will. These are called the five sheaths. So who is it who's aware of all these things? I am. So instead of attending to anything other than ourselves, even this body, mind, everything is other than ourselves. Instead of attending to anything other than ourselves, let's try and attend only to ourselves, to this fundamental awareness I am. The more we attend to that, the more ego's adjuncts will drop off, and thereby ego will subside, and eventually it will merge back into its source. And what will then remain is just that fundamental awareness I am, which is infinite existence, infinite awareness, infinite happiness, and infinite love.
Beautiful.
That is what is called Satchidananda.
Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. And the next question is going to motivate not just me, but the people who are watching this video.
Yes.
Can you share your personal experience? What are the things that you shared? Is it coming from knowledge, or you on the first hand you experience those things?
Well, we'll take two questions. That you've actually asked me two questions. The first is, can I share my experience? On this path, we are not, our aim is not to experience anything. Our aim is to find out the truth of the experiencer. All experiences are things that appear to us. But to whom do all these experiences occur? So we're not looking for any experience. Bhagavan often used to say, jnana is not a new knowledge to be attained. There's nothing new that we need to know. But we already know what we actually are is just I am. We already know I am. The problem is, on top of this fundamental awareness I am, we've imposed awareness of other things. So, and the root of that, it's only in the view of ego these other things seem to exist. So the root problem is ego, that this mistaken awareness of what we are. If we remove ego, what is always there alone will remain. So it's not a new experience. It's just we are shedding the false experience and remaining as what we always actually are. So many people on the spiritual path, they're looking for experiences. Have you experienced samadhi or this or that, or have you had visions of God? People have so many ideas, but anything that appears anything that appears will disappear. So it's not real. We are not looking for any new experience. As Bhagavan said, if jnana or mukti were something new, it would come one day and it would go another day, because whatever comes has to go. Mukti is not something that is going to be attained in future. Mukti is our real nature. We need to investigate ourselves and discover that we are actually always liberated. It's not something new that we are to attain. So why I say this in answer to your question, anything I say about my experience, I'm talking about something other than myself. that is only going to be misleading, because
Okay.
we are not looking for experiences. We're trying to discover the truth of the experiencer, the reality of the experiencer. Second, your other question was, am I talking from experience or from direct knowledge? I'm talking mainly from the perspective of Bhagavan's teachings. I can't say that I haven't surrendered myself completely. I haven't dissolved back into my source. I still am aware of myself as I am Michael. But I have, at least to a little extent, I have tried to follow Bhagavan's path. And the more we follow Bhagavan's path, the more firmly our conviction grows that what he teaches us is correct. Because what Bhagavan teaches us, he's just pointing out to us what we already know. That is, we already know I am. But he's pointing out to us that he's pointing out to us the error in our awareness of ourselves. Instead of being aware of ourselves as just I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am Michael, or I am Subbu. But even when you're aware of yourself as I am Subbu, you're still aware of yourself as I am. So we need to, what is real is only that I am, not Subbu. Subbu comes and goes. You forget about Subbu every night when you're asleep. But I am remains. You exist in sleep.
Do you think one would be aware when they are asleep, or because the memory is gone clearly the next day, where is the awareness going?
We are aware. We are aware in sleep. We're aware but not aware of anything. The reason why we generally take sleep to be a state of non-awareness, because in the waking state, we're aware of things. And we take that awareness of things to be awareness. So since we're not aware of anything in sleep, we think we're not aware. But if we were not aware in sleep, how come when we wake up, we know I slept? How can you know you slept if you didn't exist in that sleep? So we are aware of having been in a state in which we were not aware of anything. So if we were aware of who was in that state, I was. So there is awareness of our own existence remains in sleep. However, from the perspective of the mind in the waking state, sleep seems to be a state of darkness. Though actually, according to Bhagavan, it's a state of pure being and pure awareness. It seems to us to be a state of darkness because we take our knowledge of things other than ourselves to be true awareness. So the state in which we're not aware of anything, it seems a dark, dull, useless state. Okay, it's necessary to sleep because we get tired and we need to sleep to recharge our batteries, but that is not real. This is real. That's our present view. But actually, this is not real. That is real. And what we experienced in sleep, we're experiencing even now. Because in sleep, I'm aware I am. In dream, I'm aware I am. In waking, I'm aware I am. So that fundamental awareness I am is what underlies all the three states.
Okay.
The difference is in sleep, nothing other than I am exists or shines. In waking and dream, it seems that other things also exist.
Okay. That's beautiful. Now that's going to put me to the next question, which is what is meditation and how it is different than what we just talked about, the sleep, the awareness during the sleep. What is meditation and are we meditating when we are sleeping?
Right. Okay. The term meditation there are many different types of meditation, but most meditations involve attending to something other than ourselves. It may be attending to, for example, we may be thinking of a name or form of God within our mind. That is a form of meditation. We may be meditating on places in the body, on chakras, or we may be meditating on a mental image. We may imagine some flame in the heart and meditating on that. There are so many different types of meditation people do. Or people try to be mindful. Whatever they do, they try to do in a very mindful way. And they call that meditation. So meditation, there's so many different types of meditation, but what they all share in common, we are attending to something other than ourselves. This path that Bhagavan has taught us is not meditation in that sense, but it is a type of meditation. Bhagavan sometimes refers to it as Sarupa Dhyana. Sarupa means our own, what we actually are. Dhyana means meditation. So meditation, what are we meditating on? We're meditating only on ourselves. So in Sarupa Dhyana, there is no object. There is just that we're attending to ourselves. We're not attending to any object, anything other than ourselves. So if by meditation you mean this just being self-attentive, attending only to ourselves.
I mean, by meditation, the definition that I know is, for example, I take Vipassana and focusing on the breath and slowly turning from one point, which is the breath, to nothing. From one thing to another.
Okay. I before coming to Bhagavan, I once did with a person called Goenka, I did a Vipassana meditation. Okay. So you start off watching the breath, and then you start trying to attend to all over the body. You sort of scan the body with your attention. But all of that, you're attending to something other than yourself. The breath is something other than ourselves. It's an object. The body is something other than ourselves. It's an object. Some people meditate on, say, a name or form of God, or on some mental image. Mantras or whatever. Those are all thoughts. They're also objects. They're things other than ourselves. Anything we meditate on is an object, except the only thing that is not an object is ourself, the subject. So Bhagavan is trying to turn us away from meditating on anything other than ourselves to meditating on ourselves alone. So it's a shifting of our attention away from external things, away from things other than ourselves, back towards ourselves.
To be more aware of the awareness.
Yes, you can say that.
And how is that different from sleep, where we are aware of nothing external?
It is coming close to a state of sleep. That is, when we are practicing this, we are not, because we are not entirely, we don't yet have sufficient love to know what we actually are. We are attending to ourselves, but only partially. We're not entirely letting go of other things. So we're still, at least to a slight extent, aware of the body, of thoughts, of the world, of I'm sitting here meditating or whatever. So so long as there's any lingering awareness of anything other than ourselves, it is not that state of pure awareness that we experience in sleep, but it's coming very close to that. The more we attend to ourselves, the more other things recede into the background of our awareness, so to speak, and the closer we come to that state of pure awareness that we experienced in sleep. However, there's an important distinction to understand here. In sleep, what we experience is pure awareness. We experience nothing other than ourselves. We experience ourselves as we actually are. Why then do we wake up again?
Yeah.
Because ego hasn't been destroyed. Why is ego not destroyed? Because we experience pure awareness there. The reason is, why do we fall asleep? We fall asleep because of tiredness. So, because of tiredness, ego subsides. And only after ego has subsided, that pure awareness shines on its own. That pure awareness doesn't destroy ego because ego is absent. If in a court, it is, supposing there's some very bad person, he's a murderer or something, the court can pass judgment. This person should be executed. He should be hung or put in an electric chair or whatever. I mean, there are so many ways of executing people. Supposing the court passes that verdict, But can that sentence be carried out if that person has escaped? If he's not available, you can't carry out the death sentence. Likewise, ego is absent in sleep, so ego cannot be destroyed in sleep. So how to bring about the destruction of ego? In waking or dream, we as ego need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. That is why this practice that Bhagavan has taught us. Who is doing this practice? Who is doing Atmaviccara? It is ego. Ego is trying to see what it actually is. The more we turn our attention back towards ourselves, Sadhu Om sometimes used to explain it in a very simple way. He said, now we're facing the world. Our aim is to turn 180 degrees away from the world. The world includes our thoughts and everything, all objects, all phenomena. We need to turn 180 degrees away from everything else, back towards ourselves. So our aim is to turn 180 degrees. If we turn, say, 90 degrees, we are partially attending to ourselves, but we're not entirely letting go of other things. So, but when we turn the full 180 degrees, we are then aware of ourselves alone. We're not, everything else completely disappears because we are facing ourselves alone. When we're aware of ourselves alone, that is the state of pure awareness. When ego makes this effort in the waking state to experience this, waking also in dream state, but generally it's more in the waking state, but we generally practice this more in the waking state, but it can also be practiced in dream if we remember to do so. At one point, that is, we are trying to turn the full 180 degrees, but because of our attachment to other things, we're not entirely letting go of them. So we're not turning the full 180 degrees. A time will come when our mind is pure enough, when we have gained sufficient bhakti and vairagya, but we'll be willing to let go of everything else and to turn the full 180 degrees. As soon as we turn the 180 degrees, we are aware of ourselves with pure awareness. That is, ego is aware of itself with pure awareness. But ego is not, as soon as ego is aware of itself with pure awareness, it ceases to be ego. Because ego is the impure awareness, I am this body. Mm-hmm. So when we become aware of ourselves as just I am, ego is thereby destroyed. So in the case of sleep, or coma, or any other state of what is called manolaya, a temporary dissolution of mind, first the mind or ego dissolves, then the pure awareness remains. In the practice of Atmaviccara, we're trying to experience that pure, that is, we as ego are trying to experience that pure awareness. As soon as ego experiences the pure awareness, ego is thereby destroyed, because it's not, ego is the false awareness, I am Subhu. When you see yourself, oh, I am just I, ego is thereby destroyed. So yes. Ego can never experience pure awareness, but ego needs to experience pure awareness in order to cease to be ego. As soon as ego experiences pure awareness, it ceases to be ego and remains as pure awareness.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So when you said, when you mentioned coma and sleep, what about death?
It's the same. Death. Death, that is, when you fall asleep at night, sometimes if you're particularly tired, you may go straight into sleep. Mm-hmm. But generally, we fall into a dreamlike state, and then from a dream we go into sleep.
Yes, sir.
When the body dies, you may go straight into a sleep-like state, or you may dream for some time and then go into a sleep-like state. But the thing is, this dream, the dream of the present life, comes to an end when the body dies. Whether you then dream another dream or you go to sleep, whichever happens immediately doesn't matter. Sooner or later, even if you go straight into a sleep-like state, sooner or later ego will rise again and continue dreaming. What is called rebirth, that is, we talk about many piravis, Pala Piravi, Ennila Piravi, Bhagavan says in the first verse of Arunachala, of Ekatma Panchakam. countless births, every birth is just a dream. The dreamer is ego.
Mm-hmm.
The sleep, dreams occur in sleep. So the sleep in which ego and all its dreams occur is the sleep of self-ignorance. Because we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are, we mistake ourselves to be I am Subbu. In this lifetime, you're aware of yourself as I am Subbu. In the previous life, who knows who you were? You could have been Indian, you could have been European, you could have been American. Yeah, you could be anything. You could be male, you could be female. All these things we don't. You could be, you need not even be human. You could have been a cow or a dog, or you could have been a deva in heaven or something, whatever. But whatever you experience yourself as, it's all just a dream. Because so this is not what you actually are. What you actually are is only I am.
Mm-hmm. Until and unless my ego recognizes that I am is the true self and gets itself destroyed.
Yes.
Do you is that what what Ramana Maharishi said as an end to stop the cycle of birth and
Yes.
Is that the way to
the birth and death is only for ego. That is, its ego is who's aware of itself as I am this body. The body is born and the body dies. So long as we experience ourselves as I am this body, we are experiencing life. We undergo birth and death, countless births and death. I mean, because our life is not limited to this body that we now take ourselves to be. Because ego is not this body. Ego is neither the pure awareness, nor is it the body. It's a spurious entity that has risen between the two. It borrows the awareness from Satchit, from the pure awareness, and it borrows the form from the body, but it isn't actually either of them. That's why Bhagavan says, if you investigate it, it will disappear.
Wow.
But who is to investigate it? It's only ego. And what is to be investigated? Only ego. But when ego investigates itself, ego will disappear, and what will then remain is what we actually are, which is just that pure awareness I am.
Okay, that's beautiful. So you mentioned letting go at one point, so letting go, meaning letting go of desires, or is it the other way around? The more you investigate the ego, you would automatically let go of your desires, or letting go of desires helps you to break your ego down even further?
Okay. The desire is the very nature of ego. Bhagavan says in verse 25 of Ulladu Narpadu, he describes the ego as Uruvatra Peyahande, the formless phantom ego. It's formless because it's got no form of its own. It's a phantom because it's got no substance of its own. It borrows its substance from I am, and it borrows the form from a body. But it's neither the pure I am, nor is it the body. So it's a formless phantom. But how does this formless phantom come into existence? Bhagavan says in that verse, Urupatri undam, grasping form, it comes into existence. Urupatri nikom, grasping form, it stands. Urupatri undu mika ongam, grasping and feeding on form, it flourishes abundantly. Uruvittu urupatram, leaving form, it grasps form. Taidinal otam pidikam, if sought, it takes flight. So the very nature of ego is to be constantly grasping form. Ego is formless, so whatever forms it grasps are things other than itself. So the first form it grasps is the form of a body, which it takes to be I. So grasping the form of a body, it comes into existence. Grasping the form of a body, it stands. And how does it feed itself? by constantly grasping other forms. So our attention goes out away from ourselves, and we're constantly dwelling on things other than ourselves, either the objects of the world or the thoughts and feelings and memories and so on. All these are forms. They're things other than ourselves. So this is the nature of ego. So because the ego survives only by grasping things other than itself, it has natural inclination to grasp things other than itself. Those inclinations to grasp other things are what Bhagavan calls Vishaya Vasanas. Vasana means the inclination. Vishaya means all objects or phenomena are Vishayas. So those Vishaya Vasanas sprout in the form of likes and dislikes, Virupu Veripu. And those likes and dislikes give rise to desire, aversion, attachment, fear, and so on. So to the extent that we attend to ourselves, we are thereby weakening the Vishaya Vasanas and strengthening what is called Sattvasana. Sattvasana means the inclination just to be. Because by attending to ourselves, that is the state of Summa Irupatu, just being.
Okay.
Because attending to something other than ourselves is an action. Our attention is moving away from ourselves towards that other thing. That other thing may be something outside there, or it could be just a thought or a feeling in our mind. It's a movement of our attention away from ourselves. So that attending to anything other than ourselves is a doing, sale.
Okay.
Whereas attending to ourselves, our attention is not moving anywhere. It's just resting in its source. So that is not an action. It's not a karma it is a state of just being. Summa Irupadu.
Okay. Got it. So, so the nature of ego, which is the inclination, can we call that as desires? And
yes. Those inclinations are desires in their seed form.
Okay, so we cannot go after the desires directly, but we can go after identifying who we are. By that, we can destroy the desires.
That is, we need to understand the process. That is, the root of everything is ego. The nature of ego is to have Vishaya Vasanas, the inclination to attend to other things. Those are the seeds that give rise to desires and so on. Supposing you have an inclination towards a certain thing. Supposing, just for example, there's a particular, supposing you like tasty food.
Okay.
And so you've got an inclination you've got a strong liking for tasty food, and that liking gives rise to desire. Whenever you see a tasty meal or whenever you begin to feel hungry, you've got desire. And even when you've eaten to your fill, because you enjoy that tasty food, you want to eat more, so you overeat. This is how desire works. You can, if you want, supposing you know this liking for tasty food is not good for my health, because when that liking arises, it develops into a desire, and that desire makes me overeat, and therefore I'm becoming overweight, and I'm becoming unhealthy and becoming sick and everything. So though you have a liking to eat tasty food, you also have a liking to stop eating tasty food, because you eat in moderation, but not too much. So supposing you've eaten a full meal, but there's still more there, and you feel tempted to eat more, you can stop that at the level of the desire. But though you can control the desire, the liking to eat more is still there. You can also if you try to control it before it rises as a desire, you can try to control it at the liking level. But you can try to control it at an even deeper level. As soon as the inclination rises, you try to curb it. How do you curb it? By holding on to I am. Don't even think about that food. You thereby nip it in the bud. So controlling our desires is good, but it's of limited effect. It's more important to control it at a subtler level. So we need to control it as Bhagavan says, As soon as the Vishaya Vasanas rise, we need to cut them in the very place, we need to destroy them in the very place from which they rise by clinging to self-attentiveness. This is what he says in the 10th and 11th paragraphs of Nana.
Oh, you memorized the whole thing.
Because I know these
the paragraphs. That's awesome.
Because I'm constantly quoting these things because Bhagavan, that is, reading Bhagavan's works is so important because he's given everything in such a simple form. But if we understand his original works, and works like Nana, Uludunapadu, Upadesha, Arunacha Stuti Panchakam, all our questions we'll find answers to all our questions. Maybe we won't recognize the answers at first, but as we go deeper and deeper in our practice and in our study of these works, because the practice and the study must go hand in hand. The more we put this into practice, the more we're able to understand the meaning of Bhagavan's words. And the more so we need to be practicing and also studying and thinking about his words. This is a process that needs to go on in our life all the time.
Yes. I mean, in the book, I can't point out the exact paragraph, but in the book, it's mentioned that Bhagavan actually explains in multiple different ways according to the people he's engaging with, according to their level of understanding. That
is particularly true in books of dialogues like Be As You Are. You said you're reading Be As You Are. That is collected from so many sources, mostly oral sources. That is things that Bhagavan said in reply to people's questions. Bhagavan has to answer appropriate to people's level. But so it's often, I mean, we can see Bhagavan is always trying to push people deeper. So he starts off by asking them to investigate, who am I? In one way or another, that's what he points out first. When people are reluctant to follow that, then he will come down to their level. And if they say, oh, but Bhagavan, can't I do japa also? Yes, japa is very good. He will guide them at their own level. But in order to understand what is the core teachings of Bhagavan, it's his own writings. That is where he's expressed the very core of his teachings. Nana was written for a devotee called Shiva Prakasham Pillai. That it was originally questions and answers. Shiva Prakasham Pillai asked questions, Bhagavan gave answers. But Shiva Prakasham Pillai was such a mature soul and so well attuned to Bhagavan. The very first question he asked Bhagavan in 1901 or so was, Swami, who am I? Nana. So that means he's so well attuned to his guru. What did Bhagavan come to this world to teach? This path of investigating who am I? What was the first question he asked? Who am I? So he's so well attuned to Bhagavan. So because he's well attuned to Bhagavan, he asked very deep and relevant questions. And so he got deep and relevant answers from Bhagavan. So that's a very important work. Uludunapadu, Murugan simply asked Bhagavan, teach us the nature of reality and the means of attaining it so that we may be saved. So that is the most fundamental question we can ask. Bhagavan therefore wrote Uludunapadu. So Uludunapadu is Bhagavan's purest of pure teachings. So understanding such works is very, very important.
Nice. Because all these days I thought that we never had any writings of Bhagavan. It's just oral teachings. Wow,
Bhagavan has not written a lot. He's written Arunacha Stuti Panchakam. That consists of 5. Arunacha Aksharam Malai, Arunacha Navamani Malai, Arunacha Patikam, Arunacha Ashtakam, and Arunacha Pancharatnam. This is in all what about about 140 verses, a bit over 140 verses. And then he's written Upadesha Undiya, 30 verses, Uludunapadu, 40 verses, Anma Vidya, 5 verses, Ekama Panchakam, 5 verses, And
I'm pretty sure you can
that's
recite them
pretty
as
much,
well.
and a few other verses here and there.
Yeah, it will be really helpful
Yeah,
for all the people who are listening, including myself,
yeah.
that if you could write those names in the description where you post this video, that
Okay.
would be really helpful for us to,
Yeah,
search those book with the exact proper,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
characters. And yeah, uh, tell me if I'm asking too many questions and making
No,
you
no,
tired.
no, no, no.
Right.
It's good.
Okay, okay, because I got like three questions at least,
Yes.
so far. And my next question is, based on the other things, quote unquote, which are, anything that is external. There are certain things, even though they are external, we keep it in high regards. We keep it closer. Even I think in one of the stories, Bhagavan had this value closer to him, uh, which is, for example, the love that my mother shows to me,
Yeah,
or the love for my, kin,
yeah, yeah.
things like this. I heard in one of the stories that Bhagavan actually wept when his mother passed away. Is that accurate? I'm not
No,
sure.
Bhagwan didn't weep when his mother passed away.
Okay,
At,
okay,
at one time when she was very sick, when she was suffering from fever, he
uh-huh.
wrote some 4 or 5 verses,
Okay,
praying for Arunachala to remove her fever. But those verses have a double meaning.
okay,
Superficially, it looks like he's praying for her, the ending of her, the bodily fever. But actually, the
okay,
deeper meaning is he's praying for this fever of ignorance is what he's
okay.
really praying for. So,
Wow.
yeah. And his mother, he clearly said she attained mukti at the end.
Okay,
Because,
quick
I mean,
question.
it's such a very rare thing for a mother to give birth to such a child. So naturally, she was a very good soul, and by being in Bhagavan's presence, he managed to remove her final attachments, and so she attained that. But
Okay.
Bhagavan did sometimes weep. Sometimes when people came to him and
Hmm.
told the difficulties of their life,
Okay.
Bhagavan would sometimes weep out of compassion.
Compassion. Okay. Yeah. So you were talking about uh, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi praying to God to take away the fever of his mother,
Yeah.
right? Um, I heard stories where Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, showed or briefly showed what enlightenment actually is, or sparicha diksha, if I remember the term correctly, which means enlightening someone by the means of physical touch,
Yeah.
right? Okay, why he has to pray to someone else, to a higher power, if he has the capacity to do himself?
Bhagavan is Arunachala. Bhagavan and Arunachala are one and the same. For that is, Bhagavan has no will of his own because there's no person there. There's no ego there.
Mm-hmm.
Through his body and mind, Arunachala used his body and mind to pray to Arunachala for the recovery of his mother. We can't understand these things by our mind, but because it was that is in the case of his mother's illness. Any illness that we experience, that comes according to our prarabdha, our destiny. Mm-hmm. Any medicines also come according to destiny. In the case of his mother, instead of physical medicine, she had the medicine of this prayer that Bhagavan made. So it's all according to prarabdha. It was for, because she was destined to be there. She hadn't yet, she wasn't yet fully ready to surrender herself completely to Bhagavan. So it was necessary for her to remain there for some more years. I mean, this happened a few years before she passed away. So it was necessary for her to remain a few more years with Bhagavan so that illness that came to her, but could have been a life-threatening illness, it was averted. And as part of that that process of averting that death, which could have come at that time, Arunacha used the body and mind of Bhagavan to pray. And by that means of that, I mean, this is all our own way of expressing it, but really we can't understand these things.
Got it. I mean, that's an honest answer. That's one thing that I would like to mention. Throughout this interaction, it's completely honest, where you didn't give out any answers for where we couldn't possibly figure it out. Otherwise,
well, I mean, this is the nature of Bhagavan's teaching. Bhagavan's teachings are very, very simple. But what Bhagavan is teaching is he's just pointing out. He's not telling us anything that we don't know already. We already know I am. We already are aware that we're aware of ourselves as I am this body, but he's pointing out the error in that, and he explains why it is an error. If this body were actually ourselves, we couldn't be aware of ourselves without being aware of this body. But we're aware of this body only in one of our three states. But we're aware of ourselves in all three states. Therefore, this body cannot. So Bhagavan is just pointing out the things that we have overlooked. And he's also, what is the solution then to this problem? Because the problem is a false awareness of ourselves, false awareness can only be removed by correct awareness. Now we're aware of ourselves as I am Subbu or I am Michael. To remove this false awareness, we must be aware of ourselves as we actually are. To remove this permanently.
Got it. And yeah, that's actually beautiful, because he's not trying to explain the nature of external world or anything. It's all about internal.
Yes. And he said, what is the external world? It is just an appearance. But to whom does it appear? That's the thing. That is, it's only in our view that the world seems to exist. Bhagavan often used to say, does the world come and tell you that it exists? No, it's you who say the world exists. Because it exists only in our view.
So do we need this ego to experience, like I mentioned before, there are some values that we held close to and give high regards to. For example, the motherly love. Let's take that as an example. We do need our ego to experience that love, isn't it?
Yes, that is. It's all these things. That Bhagavan used the analogy of a mother's love. In some verses, he says, "Is there anything equal to the love of a mother?" So he uses that as an analogy for the love of God has towards us. But it's only an analogy, because obviously God's love is way beyond the love of a mother. I mean, however much love a mother has for her child, it's still limited, because we're limited as body. I mean, we're incapable of infinite love, whereas the love of God is infinite love. But Bhagavan used that as an analogy. In this world of manifestation, there is no love greater than the love that a mother has for her child. So, that's a very apt analogy for the love of God. Though, of course, it doesn't mean that the love of a mother is equal to the love of God. It's the closest we can come to it. All things, whatever we experience all these things. Can you experience the love of your mother or any? Does the love of a mother exist when you're asleep? It's only in your waking or dream state that you can experience that. So all duality exists only in the view of ego. That is, the love of a mother is. In the view of a mother, the child is someone other than herself. But in the view of God, we are not other. God doesn't see us as other than himself. He sees us as himself. So that is the perfect love. That is the infinite love.
Beautiful.
So if we want to know what is true love, we need to surrender ourselves completely, to merge back into that source of infinite love that we actually are.
Beautiful. I think you also
Yeah.
answered the age-old question. Well, if a tree falls down in a forest, and if it makes any,
Yeah.
noise, will there,
If there's no
and
one
if
to
there's
see it,
see it, does it actually happen?
where
Is
has
there?
that tree fallen down? It's fallen down in our own mind. As soon as we begin
Yes.
speculating, if no one is there, is there anyone will it make a noise if there's no one there to hear it make even noise? All this is only in our mind. We cannot point out to the existence of anything that doesn't exist in our mind. This whole universe, science tells us this universe is so many billions years old. The most popular theory nowadays is that it started with a Big Bang. But all these things, do any of these things exist other than in our own mind?
No, no.
I mean, it's all in our own mind.
Yeah,
So
the only thing that I know.
Where is the universe or the Big Bang or creation or anything in sleep? In sleep, what exists is only ourselves.
Yes,
so what is real is only ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, even philosophically, the base of science goes back to philosophy, and philosophically, the only thing that's real is our consciousness. My brain could be in a vat, but I could be in a simulation. But the only thing that's not changing in any of the situation is that I am aware.
Yes.
That's the base. That's the only thing that we can know. That's yeah. I don't want to go much tangent, so let me ask you this final question. One final question that's gonna that's gonna put the cherry on top for the whole session, which is how would you practically help us to meditate, to find who we are? What is the step-by-step breakdown of? I know you explained this whole thing in a theory, but it's still daunting to close my eyes and to observe myself. How do you break it down?
Okay. People used to ask Bhagavan the same question: how to practice this? Bhagavan said, you have to find out yourself. That is, nobody can. Bhagavan said, if the way were objective, it could be shown objectively. But this is not objective. We are turning back within to find out what we actually are. So no one else can find out for us what we are. We have to find out what we are. And how to find out what we are, we have to find out how to find out what we are. That Bhagavan has given us many pointers. We need to think deeply about what he said. And for example, he says, whatever may appear, to whom does it appear? There he is. He's not asking us to ask the question, to whom does this appear? He's pointing us, whatever may appear, it appears only to you. So instead of attending to what appears, attend to yourself, the one to whom it appears. So in this way, like this, Bhagavan has given us so many pointers. That's why we need to read his teachings carefully. We need to think about them deeply, and we need to try our best to apply them in practice. The more we practice them, the clearer it will become. So nobody can teach us to be self-attentive. Can you tell me, you're aware I am, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that awareness I am?
I mean, everything that I describe would describe what I am not.
Yes.
Right.
So words can only talk about what we are not. They cannot talk about what we actually are.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's actually the answer that you gave us is pretty convenient, because people can still hold on to their own existing practice and still use Bhagavan's teachings in their own practice.
Yes, but the more we go deep into Bhagavan's practice, the more our interest in other practices will drop off.
It's more like raw truth.
Because this is the essence of all practices. What is the ultimate aim of all spiritual? However we describe the aim, ultimately we've got to give up this ego. The ego is the root of all problems. In Christianity, they talk about original sin. What is the original sin? The sinner itself is the original sin. Who is the sinner? I am. So whatever religion or whatever philosophy we approach it from, it comes back to this. Who am I? That is the most fundamental question. And how to find out who am I? We cannot find out who am I by reading books. We cannot find out who am I by having philosophical arguments. We cannot find out who am I by scientific experiment. Science can tell us so much about this body and this mind and everything, but these are all objects. Who am I who is aware of this body? So we alone can find out who we are.
Yeah. That's
how to find out who we are? We have, so long as we're attending to other things, we are sustaining this false awareness. I am this ego. I am this person. Because ego is that it's only when we rise as ego and are aware of ourselves as I am this person, I am this body, but we're aware of other things. So by being aware of anything other than ourselves, we are just sustaining that false awareness. If we want to get rid of this false awareness, we need to cease being aware of other things by being aware of only of ourselves. Whenever we fall asleep, we cease to be aware of anything else, but that doesn't solve our problem. We need to not only cease being aware of other things, we need to cease being aware of other things by being aware only of ourselves. In other words, we need to be attentively self-aware.
Got it.
But these words are only pointers. It can be, we can find out how to investigate ourselves only by investigating ourselves.
Beautiful, beautiful, sir. I think that's my final question. Thank you so much. Your answers were
thank you for your questions. Good questions.
Yeah, thank you. It's pleasure mine.
Your grandfather would be very, very happy if he knew the depth of interest you have in this subject, because he loved this. He loved Bhagavan's teaching so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He and I used to talk so much about these things.
Yeah, my mom, a moment ago, she said about this thing, you were like asking him questions after questions after question, and she just mentioned you won't accept the answer as it is. You want to know why.
Yes.
Because she told me that he came to Tiruvannamalai as a student, correct?
Yeah, yes. Well, I hadn't completed my university. I came to India I was thinking I would take a 6-month break.
Okay.
But then I traveled around India for a year and a half. Then I came to Tiruvannamalai. Then so when I came to Tiruvannamalai, I was just turned 21.
Okay.
I was 19 when I came to India, and I was 21 when I came to Tiruvannamalai. And very soon I met Sadhu Om.
Okay.
And I questioned him relentlessly, as your mother said. But he appreciated it. He said it is good. He said others, people. He said one problem is people have too much respect for sadhus or people they consider to be holy people. So, okay, if Swami says so, it must be true. Yeah. But they don't think deeply about it. But I wanted to understand it for myself. So
it's the culture.
It's the culture. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. But asking so many questions, those questions coming out from rational mind, would that actually strengthens our ego? If we try to understand, rather than being experienced.
That is, understanding is necessary in order to put this into practice.
Okay.
But mere understanding, we cannot go deep in our understanding without actually practicing this. The more we practice what Bhagavan teachings, the more we put Bhagavan teachings into practice, the clearer they will become to us. The more our understanding will be deepened and clarified.
Got it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Looking forward for our next call.
Yeah. By the way, what books have you read? You said you're reading Be As You Are. Have you read Sadhu Om's book, Ramanavari?
No, sir. No, this is my very first one, the teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi.
Okay. But
still finished this one yet.
If you read Ramanavari, it's you can get it from from Arunachal Ramana Book Trust. If you Google that, if you get that and read that, that is a very, 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 very useful book, because what is the practice and how to apply this is so much useful information is given there.
Okay. Yeah.
And because it's written in Tamil, it's the words that, I mean, it's written by Sadhu Om, but he's using the words that Bhagavan himself used.